So, hi, hello, and welcome. You are streaming on the first episode of ChemTalks, where we interview various personalities to exchange chemical engineering knowledge. And this is your RJ with O2 and Shah, Roshan. So, for the first episode of ChemTalks, we have with us a chemical engineer who is fondly called as the Dr. Seuss of chemical engineering. So, let's hear about him from the person himself.
Good day, gentlemen. My name
Good
is Octave Levenspiel, and I'm a retired chemical engineering from Oregon State University.
It's a great pleasure and honor to have you here, sir. So, right from your birth, you have led a diversified life. How do you feel about that, sir?
I feel like I'm a human version of unity in diversity. I was born to a Polish father, and my mother was a Russian in China. I attended a German kindergarten and English school, as well as a French university. So I experienced cultural diversity throughout my childhood, not just externally, but also genetically.
Wow, you are indeed a unity in diversity of human versions, sir. What dragged you into a field like chemical engineering and especially into chemical reaction engineering, so called CRE?
To be honest, I was not into chemical engineering. I actually wished to be an astronomer, but I didn't gain sufficient score in my freshman year math course. I turned out to be a chemical engineering, and I chose chemical reaction engineering over thermodynamics by virtue of coin toss.
Wow, it is indeed hilarious that a coin toss decided the fortune of a lot of modern chemical engineers, sir. And talking about your book on CRE, which is called as the Bible for so many people who are interested to learn about CRE. So, how are you able to make such a simplified version of a big subject like CRE, sir?
CRE was my first teaching assignment after graduate school. For me, initially, CRE was a nightmare. Literature available was very complicated and was filled with a lot of unknown jargons. After the European Symposium on chemical engineering, my perspective on reactors changed radically, and as a result, I needed to maintain notes, which I later published as a book that goes by the name Chemical Reaction Engineering, also known as CRE.
It's indeed a very simplified version of a great subject like CRE, sir. And the simplifications you made helped us to develop an unconditional interest towards the subject. And this simplification was also reflected even in your research paper titled Notes on the Diffusion Type Model for the Longitudinal Mixing of Fluids in Flow. What aspect of the paper do you think made it widely referable, sir?
This is actually a very interesting story of mine. The idea for this paper came when I was reading the proceedings of Royal Society. I doubt if a young teacher today would have time to waste on this sort of purposeless reading owing to pressure to publish and bring in research grants. The paper itself is quite simple, and it asks the following question. If you introduce a perfect pulse of tracer into a flowing stream such as a river, a pipe, or a blood vessel, what would be the shape of the tracer curve as it passes a point far downstream? My mathematical name, Bill Smith, helped me to answer this question. In essence, our paper gave equations for both the shape and spread of the output curve in terms of longitudinal dispersion coefficient, a quantity that characterizes the extent of mixing which occurs during flow. This was useful for experiments in many fields since it suggested the type of experiment to perform and how to interpret the results in terms of a simple model for them.
Wow, simple things are always great, and bringing complex things into a simple form is indeed a great adventure, or to be more precise, it's a great thing to note on, sir. So, talking about your publications, you initiated the first Japanese-American cooperative book writing effort in chemical engineering. So, what was the trigger behind it, sir?
I guess it was somewhere around 1963, after an ISCHE meeting at Indianapolis. I was returning to Chicago on the train. During the travel, I met a Japanese gentleman, and with my magical tricks, I got to know about his parents. At that point, I was not aware that it was the start of a lifelong friendship with Professor Diazo Konil of the University of Tokyo. Gradually, it so happened that we both worked together to compile the book Advanced Text on Fluidization Engineering.
Well, small things in life do create a big impact, sir, along with the memorable moments that were being created. And at that point of time, that kid was not aware that you are not making a magic alone with towards him, but also you were about to create a magic with Professor Dizer Kuni as a textbook, like in the name of textbook called the Advanced Text on Fluoridation Engineering. So I also assumed that it was this ASH meeting that you refer often tends to be a turning point in your career, sir.
You are absolutely right, gentlemen. It was those days when there was no proper communication. I met Ralph Pack, chair of Chemical Engineering Department at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, in the ASH meet, who invited me on the spot to join the Chemical Engineering Department at IIT. Since Ralph spent most of his summers entirely in his beloved Minnesota woods and was not reachable by phone or other means, there was a lot of tense moments because they were not aware why I was there. It was only when Ralph returned I joined there as a faculty, and also it was there when I completed my first book on chemical reaction engineering.
Wow. So if Ralph was absent, I think Illinois would have missed a great professor like you, sir. And it's completely a stunning experience to go to a place where you're not aware of, and staying there for a long period of time too is would have been a marvelous experience for you. And coming back to your first collaborative work, Advanced Text on Fluoridation Engineering, I guess your first paper was partly based on fluoridation engineering. Am I right, sir?
Yes, man. I published my first paper in Industrial and Engineering Chemistry with J.S. Walton and R.L. Olson. Based on my doctoral research on fluidized beds, I published my first paper when I started teaching at Oregon State University.
Wow, that's so good to hear, sir. And talking about the Oregon State University, we came to know that you taught a variety of courses venturing into areas that were outside chemical engineering, like gaming theory, statistics alongside thermodynamics. How was that new sort of experience, sir?
Well, I often like to do something out of the box. I often venture into domains outside chemical engineering. I have published papers on topics such as orienting oneself in zero gravity, evolution of the Earth, and the least number of moves required to cross the chessboard in Chinese checkers.
Oh, chemical engineering publishing papers related to gaming is something unheard of and something very unique. And hearing the word game from you, I assume that you are a master in chess and many other games. I guess so.
Well, I love games. I love to play them. I play Chinese checkers, Korean, Japanese, and Manchurian chess too.
Manchurian, I'm sorry, sir, because the only word or the thing that I remember when I heard Manchurian is the food. So, what's that Manchurian chess, sir?
You're indeed a great foodie. It's known as Manchu chess or Yitong chess. Fun fact is, I once held the record in Eastern United States Boomerang Throwing Championship. I threw and caught the boomerang 57 times in succession.
Wow, this is something very, very unique and something very crazy thing. And also, one other thing that you have done, something similar to like if I got to know about you while searching about you, is that you held your breath nearly for 6 minutes, and it was something so unique and so new to hear. And you are not stopped that doing such things outside the domain, but also you have tried a lot of such things that is so unique and crazy in the core field too. For example, you try to bring up a concept that relates something small like mice and contradictingly big like an elephant, and something that lived in the past like dinosaur, and something that is wide that are the oceans, and something that is related to fluids like pressure, and something that is concerned with air like aerodynamics. How did you came up with such a concept, sir?
Haha, I like the way you describe. People call me crazy when I do this.
Well, it's not sounds to be crazy, sir. Actually, there's a few wordings that trending in social media right now. So if you break the law of code, you turn up to jail. But if you break the law of physics, you indeed turn to Sweden to get your Nobel Prize.
I correlated them under a theory called mouse to elephant curve. It's a popular theory in anatomy and physiology that relates the metabolic rate of an animal to its body mass. It is roughly similar to the scaling up we do in process development.
Oh, that's so cool, sir. And also, I have a doubt in one other paper that you have published. So, you were able to reason out that the claim posted by the people of aerodynamics that to assume that the firing cages of huge size should never fly given the metabolic requirement and such creatures could have flown only if the atmospheric pressure was 3 to 5 bars. But it was obvious from the unearthed fossils that the dinosaur had wings, which imply the atmospheric pressure was indeed a crushing 5 bars. What formed the basis of your reasoning that the atmospheric pressure decreased from 5 bar to 1 atmosphere? So,
Actually, it's very simple. The answer to your question is carbon dioxide. I noted that the Earth's initial atmosphere was almost entirely comprised of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. Citing other publications that proved 50 to 70 bar of carbon dioxide now exists in mineral solid forms such as carbonates in Earth's crust. I showed that CO2 must have dissolved into the oceans using Henry's law and it must have reacted with the expunged calcium and magnesium oxides in the Earth's crust. I further extrapolated that the higher concentration of CO2, which is a greenhouse gas, was the reason why Earth didn't freeze over and life began.
oh, this explanation was so cool to hear, and all the explanations regarding your papers or your life was so amazing. So, we are at the end of the talk. So, what piece of advice would you like to offer for the people who would love to enjoy the essence of chemical engineering?
Well, I always tell my friends not to listen to a specific comments or advice, but still, since you forced me, I just want to tell something about my life experience.
Please, sir.
I had following struggles in my life. When I was 35, I was diagnosed with a terminal cancer, but still, I outlived the expectations of the doctors. And also, any problem is just a problem. I don't classify them into discipline. If I can and if I outlived all the expectations of the doctors, you could do wonders in your life too.
Thank you so much for such an inspiring word, sir. And with this, we come to the end of the splendid interview. And this is your RJ R with R-Ö-SHA, Roshan.
And this is RJ, also known as Levenspiel.
And to know more about our upcoming post or upcoming podcast, do follow us on our social media handles at IICHESCHAP. And at this time, we hope that we will be getting back stronger in a fast-paced time. Until then, do stay safe and wear a mask and step out only if necessary. So take care and see you in the next episode. Until then, tata, bye-bye.